Hi, and welcome back to SDI Coffee Breaks. Again, we're with our good friend Pat Bolger. Hi, Pat.
Hi, Dave.
And we've been discussing over the last couple of videos, hopefully if our listeners have seen it, collaboration and how to affect, collaboration, how to get to some really good outcomes and become a collaborative organization. The next section is about barriers, the acknowledgement of barriers to collaboration, right? To acknowledge them right up front. And I think it's fair to say, if we'd been in where we are right now, 10 years ago, I don't think we'd sort of be talking about collaboration in the same way. I think we would have been in some really challenging times from an IT perspective. And I think, when you see the new collaboration platforms come out, the SaaS solutions and all that, it's a different world, Pat. It's a different world, yeah.
Oh, totally different. Totally different. I think had the kind of complete migration to cloud for a lot of applications not happened, we'd have been in a world of pain.
Yeah.
I mean, people are still, I think to some extent, this is kind of signal the death knell for on-premise application. There's some stuff it's never going to get you moved. This legacy is just going to sit there till it dies out and something else replaces it. But I would say wherever possible now, you're going to see a massive migration to cloud for all these things. The fact is, I mean, from a collaborative perspective, we made a decision on one day to shut down the office and have everyone working from home. And because we have a fully digital supply chain, and our processes, it's all been embedded in our processes over the last 7 years since we've been doing this. We literally just shifted and there was pretty much no disturbance at all. It's a pretty fortunate position to be in. The only difference is you don't see people face to face, and that is something that you do have to contend with and deal with and have a plan once we return to work.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I've been on the same journey to some degree. We've certainly been on a similar journey very quickly over the last few weeks, but I've been working from home for about 6 years now. So I understand some of the pitfalls around not being engaged with a team on a day-to-day basis. And when we talk about some of those barriers, maybe, what do you think of the barriers? And he mentions this in the publication as well. What are the type of barriers to collaboration? And maybe how do you address some of those barriers?
I think the big challenge is, first and foremost, is leadership, the actual drive to get this done. So when I talk about leadership, I'm not talking, it has to come from C-level. It's going to be a hell of a lot easier if it is a C-level, we're going to be a more collaborative organization. It's going to make life a hell of a lot easier because you get more people doing it straight away. But even without that, we see leadership going in the opposite direction. I know some of our customers, for example, just weren't collaborating at all, started to do this, and then it's a light bulb moment. It's like, oh my God, this is so much easier. Yeah. And they start to kind of mention each other and talk in workspaces and work out loud and stuff like that. And that light bulb goes on as to what can actually be achieved. And what they do is they do some great stuff. Then they get HR teams coming back to them saying, that stuff you were doing over there, could you help us with that? So you get the whole enterprise service management piece. And believe me, collaboration is a big, big part of that. Because if your teams are not talking to each other, you can't really deliver service effectively. So collaboration is a prerequisite. So leadership is really important.
Yeah.
The other thing is, because there's a ton of collaborative tools out there, especially standalone stuff we're using Zoom now, we're on Microsoft Teams, whatever that happens to be, Slack. The challenge is that in most organizations, those things get adopted really, really quickly. People have a great play on them. There's a bit of a rush. There's a big peak of adoption. Then it's like, actually, I need to go back to doing my work. So you go back into your email or whatever applications you happen to be using. And that kind of adoption just wanes and takes a bit of a dip. So the second bit is to make collaboration a destination application. And what I mean by that is where you collaborate is also where you work. So collaborating inside the tool. If you're doing that, it's where you do your work. It's also where you collaborate. Collaboration becomes collaboration with purpose. It's not an add-on. It's actually there to achieve a goal. And that, I think, is one of the biggest things that you can do. Getting off email internally. So we had this battle. Someone would email me, and if they'd email me with a question that I think actually this belongs in a workspace, I copy the content of the email, I post it into the workspace and say, please reply here in the future. It takes a while. It probably took us about 6 to 8 months before we could see people saying, I searched in the workspace and couldn't find it. But I would say now, pretty much I don't get any internal emails unless it's something forwarded to me from a customer or something.
That's really interesting. And the cultural barriers. So, there's some really good points there. And I think, again, we're going to elaborate on some of those as we go through this. I think, I don't know, in some of when we talk about adoption, adaption, adopt, adapt, when we look at best practice, when we look at methodology standards, books that people read and interpret and put stuff in place, I think I've seen some of the most challenging organizations are the most closed organizations, more protective, more risk averse, more challenged to have those collaborative conversations. And when we talk about value, collaboration is an underpinning sort of, it underpins a foundation of value, isn't it? So, what have you seen in some of the better structured organizations when it comes to collaboration, and how they've overcome some of these? You mentioned 6 to 8 months, for example. How do organizations overcome these over time? What's it take? Is it leadership? Is it key? Is that as key as it is?
I don't think there's kind of just one thing. I think there's lots and lots of different things. I'd say persistence is probably the first thing. So if you can get commitment, even at a team level, so IT, to my mind, is the best part of the organization, the best department in the organization, or capability to actually start being collaborative. You think about what we do, and you think about what goes on. I mean, we have a whole kind of movement, DevOps, to basically try and get people to talk to each other. And actually, in the DevOps community, you hear people complaining that there's not enough collaboration going on. So when we come back to collaboration, it's that thing I was talking about, working out loud. So can you get your teams to interact with each other where you're actually commenting in a collaborative workspace about maybe a new service that you're developing, and people sharing their ideas and posting useful videos and content and all that. The beautiful thing about that is, from a collaborative perspective, once you're doing this and those discussions are happening, they're happening and capturing kind of tacit knowledge as you go as well. So they're capturing the stuff that comes out on the job, day in, day out, as you interact, not the stuff that you write down within books. So that's the other aspect to collaboration that makes it really, really important for any organization.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. I'll tell you what, then we're gonna close this session here, if that's okay, and we'll catch up on some of those themes in the next few videos. So I'd like to thank you again, Pat, for joining us. I'd like to thank the listeners for joining us as well, and we'll see you in the next session. Thank you.